In this video, we're going to be going over how many whole numbers fall between two numbers. And before I jump into that, I want to give an example of how this works specifically for this example. So let's say, for instance, we're trying to see how many whole numbers fall between 12 and 22. Now, let's do the tick marks in between them. So it'll be 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. So we have a question where they'll say, how many whole numbers fall between 12 and 22? Now, the issue here is that we can't use any scratch work. We can't draw this number line. But a lot of times what we're used to doing is we're used to counting the tick marks, right? So we can say, okay, 13, 14, 15. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's 9, right? So the answer would be 9. Now, the thing is that sometimes these numbers are so far apart that it'd be really time consuming for us to even do the counting. So what we can do is we know there's 9. Now, what if we subtract? A lot of times we subtract when we find the distance between them. So like 22 minus 12, that's equal to 10, but the 10 doesn't match up with the 9. And the reason being is because the 10 represents how many spaces there are. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the subtraction counts the spaces, and we want the tick marks. We want the numbers. So there's always going to be one less tick marks than there are spaces. So for example here, since we're trying to find the number of whole numbers between 9 and 28, well, the difference between those two is 19, right? 19. But when we remember, if we subtract these two, it gives us the amount of spaces, just like we did in this example here. We don't want the number of spaces, we want the number of ticks. So we just take away 1 and the answer is 18. So from here on out, whenever they're asking for how many whole numbers, we're going to subtract these two and then subtract 1 from it. So how many whole numbers between 41 and 28? Well, that is 13. So 13, but we take away 1, that is 12, right? Again, there are blank whole numbers between 22 and 7. So the difference between the two is 15. Now, since it's 15, we have to take away 1, and it's 14 now. So the formula is here. We subtract, and then we take away 1. Again, the reason we take away 1 is because when we subtract, that only gives us the number of spaces. When we take away 1, that gives us the number of whole numbers or tick marks that there are, okay? Now let's jump into this one. So now this one's asking a little bit different. They're asking either for how many even or how many odd whole numbers between and 2 odd or 2 even, okay? So let's say, for example, the same example of 12 and 22, right? So let's say, for instance, we want to find how many odd. So in these specific examples, we want to know, if we want to know how many odd, we're going to want to know how many odd are between 2 evens. Okay, so again, there's 9 tick marks, so 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Now this is 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Now, if you want to know how many odd numbers there are, we can literally just count 13, 15, 17, 19, and 21. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, what we want to do is we want to relate it to just knowing, or the information they're given to us. We just know that this is the endpoint and this is the endpoint. We don't count the endpoints in these examples. So if I subtract again 22 minus 12 in my head, I get 10. And then I know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole numbers that are odd. So the relationship between the 5 odd whole numbers and the 10 is that 5 is half. So what we need to do is we need to subtract, and then we need to divide by 2 only when if they're asking for odd and there's 2 endpoints that are even. So what I like to say is that they're opposites. So if they're opposite, this is odd, and these 2 are even, then we subtract and divide by 2. So for instance here, in this example, this is even and these are odd. Since they're opposite, we're going to subtract these, which is 12, and then divide by 2. So 12 divided by 2 is 6, okay? Now, I know a lot of you guys would be tempted just to count. Like, I mean, if you're so close, then why not just count? But I guarantee you there's going to be questions where these numbers are so far spread apart that you're going to have to use this formula, okay? So again, we need to ask ourselves, okay, we're asking for odd, and these are even so that they're opposite. So the rule is you subtract and then you divide by 2. So 20 minus 8, that's 12, divided by 2 is 6, okay? Again, here, these are even. So they're asking for how many even, and these are odd, so they're opposites. So we're going to subtract these two. So 37 minus 19 is, what is that, 18? So 18, which subtracted, now we're going to divide by 2, and that's 9. Again, this is only if what they're asking for is opposite of the endpoints. And when I say opposite, I'm talking about opposite. If they're odd, one's odd, and then the other ones are even. If they're even, the other ones are odd. Okay? All right. Now here, this one is saying if they're not opposite. So if they're asking for how many whole numbers between, so how many even whole numbers between two even numbers, then the rule's a little bit different. So here the rule is you subtract, you divide by 2, but then you have to take away 1. And here's the reason why. Let's say, for instance, again, 12 and 22, right? So we have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then there's 22, right? So we don't include the endpoints whenever we're trying to figure out how many even are here, right? We don't include the endpoints. So let's count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So if we're only given 22 and 12, if we subtract them, we get 10. So what's the relationship between 10 and 4? Well, here's what I found out. When you divide 10 by 2, you get a 5. And then when you take away 1, you get that 4. So here's what you're going to do every time. If you're wanting to know how many even numbers between two even numbers, you're going to subtract, divide by 2, and then take away 1 from that. Okay? So 20 minus 6 is 14. Divided by 2 is 7. Minus 1 is 6. Okay? Here again, this is even, this is odd, and these are odds. So they agree. They're not opposites of each other. They're both the same. We're going to subtract these, which is 8. Divided by 2, which is 4. And then take away 1, which is 3. Okay? All right. So now this one, again, this is even. And we want to know how many even are between two evens. We subtract, which is 10, divide by 2, which is 5, and then take away 1, which is 4. Okay? Again, I know that these two numbers are so close to each other, and you're going to be tempted just to learn it by counting, but it's going to save you so much time if you use this formula. Okay? All right, the next one's here. It says how many even or odd between one odd and one even. So as an example, let's say we have how many even or odd numbers between one even and one odd. Let's say it's 27. And it could be flip-flop. Let's say this is 13 and this is 28. So it doesn't matter. Here's the rule. You're going to subtract minus 1 and then divide by 2. So let's see why. So how many even between an odd and an even number? So they're flip-flop. But 19 minus 16 is 13. We don't directly divide by 2 because we have to take away 1, which is 12. And then we divide by 2, which is 6. Okay, so your answer is 6 here. Okay, so again, odd, and we end up even odd. So the rule is subtract these two, which is 27. And then we have to take away 1. So 1 minus 27 is 26, right? Divide by 2 is 13. Okay, next one is even. So an even, how many even numbers between an odd and an even? So in this case, we're going to subtract, which is 13, take away 1, which is 12, and then divide by 2, which is 6. So your answer here is 6.